it well. Played it very, very, very well indeed.
No more slices for you.
Oh, look at that for judgment.
You'll learn.
Hello, it's episode 8 of Slice. Ben Coley here with Sam Harrop. Sam, I was wondering how to start this episode. You know, we've tried all sorts by now, haven't we? My wife and I went out on Saturday night, which is a big enough event in the life of a parent of 2 young boys that it felt worth mentioning anyway. But we went to see Henning Wehn,
Okay. Yeah.
the German comedian, familiar to many who listen to panel shows on the radio and the TV or whatever. And it was good. It was good. It wasn't great. It was good. It made me realise actually how amazing Ben Elton was when I saw him a few months earlier. But it was good. Now, had I not enjoyed it, I can't really imagine that I would have got home and felt the need to leave a 1-star review should this feature be available via Henning Wehn's website or social media accounts. Alas, in the podcast game, things are much more cutthroat. We have had our first 1-star review. I believe every other review has been 5 stars. Whatever. We've had our first 1-star review. And what's most interesting about this review, and I think gives us a big clue as to where this review really comes from, is that within minutes, a 1-star review had appeared on Spotify and iTunes. I'm going to go as far as saying the 1-star review came from someone I argued with on Twitter rather than someone who listened to our podcast. But I've taken it well, as you can tell. How are you? How's your week been? Have you had any bad reviews?
I don't think I've had any bad reviews. I mean, obviously that's a collective bad review for us.
That is true,
and who knows? Maybe someone hated one of my songs and has just listened to it, and I don't know. It's a shame, isn't it? But obviously, we can put this to rights, or at least you, our listeners, can put this to rights by leaving us a 5-star review, which will hopefully negate that 1-star review, right? I don't know how it works.
Absolutely. I mean, we're on like 4.9 now because it doesn't round up annoyingly. But I actually think 4.9 looks sort of cooler. It looks like you can't please everybody in this world. We're not here to please everybody.
It looks like we haven't just left 5-star review. Got all of our friends to leave 5-star reviews.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got extra clout now thanks to the 1-star review, which almost certainly came from the hands of Red Harrington. Good. On with the show.
Well, let's recap last week's events, and let's start with the Mexico Open, which I hadn't watched much of. I was away with the family from Friday to Sunday, but I got back in time for the playoff. And I will say now, and I'm not crowing about the fact that I had a winner, because I don't often, to be honest, but I was in that lovely position of having money on both of the playoff contestants. And obviously, Potgieter, I think if we're honest, should have won that event. Really, I mean, he should have won it in regulation, but some shortcomings from what I've read about maybe held him back. And then obviously in the playoff, you had all kinds of stuff, him spraying it wide left on the first playoff hole. Maybe Campbell should have won on that hole because he had a relatively simple bunker shot, and obviously he then made par, went back down. Campbell hit his shot going OB and bounced out into the rough, and then obviously hit a brilliant wedge and set up birdie. But again, Potgieter should have made a birdie himself. So what's your take on it, Ben?
Oh, where do you begin? I mean, if you back Potgieter and not Campbell, I think that's really, really rough. I think to lose around that golf course to the shortest driver on the PGA Tour is one thing. To lose after the shortest driver has hit a massive wipe 240 yards into trees that are not in the boundaries of the course. Oh man, I would have struggled. So sympathies to the likes of Jamie Worsley, Martin Matthews, and it felt like a lot of people, your good self as well, were on Potgieter last week. This might sound a little bit like I'm being contrarian for the sake of it, but I thought Potgieter did fine. He's contended now in the last 3 months. He's contended for the Australian Open. I think it was that, not the PGA, wasn't it? He's contended for that. He's contended for the Nedbank Golf Challenge, a really big DP World Tour event. He's contended for the Farmers at Torrey Pines on another big boy golf course. And now he's contended in Mexico. I mean, aside from the fact of clear patterns emerging as to where you can expect him to contend, he's really giving himself plenty of chances. And I thought he did fine. I thought for me, the takeaway is that, under pressure, weaknesses tend to get exposed. And he has a couple of weaknesses that are very much the sort of weaknesses that will we will see more often from young players who learn the game in the way he has, and it's basically you learn to hit it as hard as you can, and a lot of them are not particularly good around the greens, and when you do hit it as hard as he does, I mean, the other error he made really at the third hole was making bogey when he had 110 yards from the fairway, and that was a wedge that went probably 10 paces too long. So I think it speaks to an interesting sort of immediate future or medium-term future in golf, men's professional golf in particular, where these youngsters, like, maybe the thing that actually will separate them is the ones who can dial in the wedges, and you think, Dustin Johnson-esque, I suppose, but the ones who have got that sort of that natural touch around the greens, if you like, because in some ways, although Potgieter is freakishly long, maybe in 10 years everyone's long, and therefore no one's long, and it's an interesting. It'll be interesting to see how the game develops, and actually, if we had more golf courses that demand imagination around the greens, it would be a different way to separate these players as the game evolves, and as many other aspects of the game have been sort of outgrown. So I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there. I thought he did okay. He was unlucky,
I hear you, and ultimately, let's not forget, he's 20 years old, right? And like you say, he's already been in contention several times. That's impressive in itself, right? He's got plenty of time to work on those shortcomings. He will be in contention many, many more times. And actually, for me, I was quite glad to see Campbell win, because I'm like, realistically, this could be his one chance to win a PGA Tour event. It's one of those things. He's got to take the opportunity. It may not come again. Potgieter will have, maybe hundreds of more opportunities. He's very young. So I was happy to see Campbell win.
Yeah, and look, what's interesting, I suppose, is that 2 or 3 years ago, and the old PGA Tour, if we can call it that, he might not have played. He might have thought, I'm not going to go to Mexico. I'm just going to stay fresh for the Cognizant, which is a far better course for him. But now, players of his sort of category, the Korn Ferry Tour players, sort of have to play whenever they can play. So he went down there probably not expecting to challenge. I mean, the difference in distance between him. I mean, you can't ask for anything more stark than the number one in driving distance versus the number last. What is he, 187th or something?
182, I think. But yeah.
It's just in some ways, setting aside hard luck stories for anybody and all that sort of stuff. It's great that golf can do that. It is almost unique to golf that you can have this stark contrast in age, experience, in skill, and in ways of getting the ball in the hole. And everyone was feeling it. And look, I've had a few people tell me, Potgieter didn't do very well or whatever, and we could debate what the fairest way to describe that would be all day long. But Aaron Rise got into a tie for the lead and played the rest of the course in what, 2 over, 1 over. I think he birdied the last, didn't he? So the final 12 holes in 1 over. Alex Smylie got to within 2 shots of the lead and came home in about 50. There were some much more experienced players. Stephen Yeager was never at the races. I think he made his first birdie on the 11th hole. And Potgieter, he had all sorts of problems, but he made some 15, 20-foot putts that I think someone said it on the commentary. I think it might have been Bones. Like, if this was a 40-year-old, we'd be saying that's really clutch. He's not got his game today, and he's keeping in this. So I thought he did just fine. And one sort of thing to take away from it that was picked up in commentary and has been picked up on Twitter since, Ernie Els is clearly trying to give him a bit of guidance and is trying to help him work on that chipping weakness. And you can, if you have a look around, you'll see some people analysing it. And I thought Trish Johnson did a really good job of that as well on Sky Sports, albeit when she was doing that, we were missing the actual shots. But She was analysing, just briefly, she was analysing, it's not her fault, it's the pictures. She was analysing his duff chip on the 3rd hole, while on my other screen, I was watching Shot Tracker as he duffed a chip on the 7th. It's like, well, can we just watch the one he's duffing in real time, please, rather than the one? But there we are. Such is the life of a golf fan.
Well, yeah, and one last word as well I wanted to say on the Mexico Open. I find it interesting, and who knows, we always talk about this, is it a coincidence or not? But, Brian Campbell went to the University of Illinois. Who else went to the University of Illinois? Thomas Dietrich. He wins a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it's a coincidence, but it feels like if anything's going to lit a fire under someone like Brian Campbell, that could be it. And that leads me on to the fact that our friend Adrian Dumont de Chassart is playing on the Korn Ferry Tour this week in Argentina. And I wonder whether he might also, take some sort of influence from that. So we'll see. But
yeah, and I think he's opened up favourite just about. And look, it's interesting that he is there. I've not actually checked whether he would have got into the SA Open, South African Open. I'm guessing he wouldn't, with it being co-sanctioned. It might have been one of those that he couldn't get a game in anyway. But feasibly next week he could play on the DP World Tour. And is he going to travel from Argentina? He's got some decisions to make, and it's going to be hard. And it might almost be wherever he gets his sort of first top 10, if that were to come in the next 2-3 months, that's where I'm going to stay and try and build on that. Because otherwise he could end up playing pretty well and losing his DP World Tour status and not getting anywhere near a PGA Tour card via the Corn Ferry Tour. We'll see how he gets on. But it's a very modern quandary to have, and it's not a bad one to have. You know, we'll see what he decides to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, and this leads on to chap on Twitter, Irish on Tour, sent a tweet this morning just saying he doesn't feel it's sort of fair that players like Adrian can sort of dip in and out of the DP World Tour as and when they fancy it. You know, go and play on the Corn Ferry, come back to DP World Tour, and you know, and it's a reasonable point to be made there. You know, that a player like him, with his status from the 126 to 200 on the PGA Tour, can kind of play. But basically, whenever he fancies, not every single event, but he'll get into a lot of events. Whereas, you know, your players who've got through DP World Tour Q School and the Challenge Tour graduates are sort of further down the pecking order.
Yeah, and I think we've said it on here before that the qualifying school category now. I mean, we had it in the week before last on the Challenge Tour, was won by Wilco Nienaber, who, to all intents and purposes, is supposed to be a DP World Tour player this season and should be playing a DP World Tour schedule. And maybe that, you know, it's a big event in South Africa that you went to play. Players do drop down of their own volition sometimes. A couple of things to point out. So this is a category that was came after the Strategic Alliance. I careful not to confuse that with framework agreement in all these terms we have to remember. Between the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour. And as part of the deal that sees 10 DP World Tour members qualify for PGA Tour membership via the Race to Dubai, 5 PGA Tour members who finished outside the top 125 in FedEx Cup points, but no lower than 200th in the previous season, can have a category on the DP World Tour that is higher than Q School and the Challenge Tour. Fundamentally, that feels wrong to me. We sort of have to be a bit real world about it. Like, you know, the PGA Tour is basically loaning the DP World Tour money at the moment and not asking for it back. And if 5 players coming over to play the Qatar Masters is part of that arrangement, then this is what we have to accept. The other thing I think is important to note is that it is any 5. So when we talk about players like Adrian having the freedom to play where he likes, it's not strictly true, because I don't know where he must have finished about 140th in the FedEx Cup last year. If numbers 126 to 130 all decided to come and play the DP World Tour, he wouldn't be able to. So clearly we're seeing the same group. We saw it last year with like Dylan Fratelli, Sung Kang, Jonas Blix. This year it looks like it's Brandon Wu, Troy Merritt, Adrian maybe, and a couple of others. Clearly it's not appealing to everybody, but there is a bit of nuance to it. I feel strongly that there are too many DP World Tour members ultimately, and that if I was a player, I mean, maybe we need to ask players rather than me, but if I was a player, a little bit of clarity and knowing what my prospects were would actually help, like everybody, I think.
Yeah, and I think ultimately it comes down to, you know, what does having a card mean, right? You know, if you earn your card via DP World Tour Q School, in my mind, that should mean that you're eligible to play any events outside of the Rolex events. Or you can get into those fields, because otherwise the kind of the meaning of having a DP World Tour card is sort of lost, really. It's sort of, you've got half got a card, you've half got a Challenge Tour card. Hotel Planner Tour. We keep doing that, don't we? But anyway, let's move on. We've talked at great depth about that, and also we've spent a lot of time on PGA Tour, and we're trying to be a DP World Tour first podcast. So quickly mention the LPGA, Honda LPGA in Thailand. Angel Yin won there, and she shot 65 in the final round, 1 by 1, with a birdie on the last.
I think she was miles clear and shot 65 and only 1 by 1. So it was a great finish, and she birdied the last. So yeah, good performance. She's won 3 times now. Dubai, Shanghai, and Thailand. So clearly one to watch when she travels beyond her US base.
Yeah, absolutely. TGL we'll briefly touch on because I understand that you watched it for the first time live
That's
last
not
week.
make good radio, is it? Me clapping my hands together. That's going to sound awful. I did watch it for the first time last week, and genuinely, I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. I put it on at about 7:30, which it was sort of the closing stages of the match. I'm afraid my expert friend who knows everything there is to know about the TGL, which is you, told me it started a bit later than it did. So I missed a bit of the first match, but that's probably to my benefit. I came in towards the end of that first match and it got me. I thought this is really good. So then I watched the second match and they were both very, very close matches. And actually, the more they can do, whatever they have to do to try and make these matches close. I don't know, like make the team in front play one-handed or something. Just make the matches close. This is not serious. It's not meant to be serious. So try whatever they can do. I can't think of an example in other sports. Maybe the women's Ashes is one with the point system, but basically make it so that it's never dead until it's dead, you know. But I really genuinely enjoyed it. A little bit too much chirp from Wyndham Clark, but I'm nitpicking. I thought it was great.
I think
I don't know if my team won though. That's the main problem. I mean,
they won. They're top of the table, Ben. They're looking good going into the playoffs. So,
is my team the one with Ludwig?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, I'm thrilled.
Well, next week there'll be a face-off between our two teams heading into that play. I mean, 1 and 2 in the standings at the moment, so that could be a good one for us to watch. And it's also at a UK-friendly time, so we'll talk about that more. But on to the DP World Tour, the Magical Kenya Open. Jacques Kruijswijk, I believe I'm correct in pronouncing, won. And did you watch much of it, Ben? I was at Centre Parks with my family, and I watched little bits in between journeys to the tropical swimming paradise. No, is that what it's called? Something like that. Anyway, I saw bits and bobs, but yeah, did you watch the entirety of the final round?
I mean, is it really a tropical swimming paradise if there isn't a big screen TV showing the Magical Kenya Open? I'm not so sure. I watched quite a bit of it. Yeah, I was following it in dismay as my golfers all played poorly. But this is terrible. But I was sort of hoping Kruijswijk wins because, you know, John Parry was a fairly obvious 40-1 shot, and you don't like to miss those. That's how I sometimes have to think about golf. But I was pleased for him. He's always seemed, or at least for about 5 or 6 years now, has seemed like a player who could make up into a really solid DP World Tour operator. He was into it as well, which was great. You know, it meant a lot to him. He's in his early 30s. You know, he's won on the Sunshine Tour. He's won on the Big Easy Tour and all that sort of stuff. But DP World Tour is different, and yeah, really impressive. One takeaway really that is just worth bearing in mind for future years. 4 of the top 6 had played on the Challenge / Hotel Planner / Sunshine Tour co-sanctioned the week before, including a couple of big prices. And although, you know, somewhat different golf courses, Mathega's sort of very, very old school. You know, Kikuyu grass, the weather, the heat, you know, in some way, while the main DP World Tour players had their feet up after a week in Qatar, it probably helped players like Kruijswijk to have played. And yeah, good performance.
Absolutely. Yeah, the thing that I was going to mention as well is that I feel like my kind of data analysis nearly paid off in as much as a lot of the players who were in and around the lead for much of the tournament were those kind of, you know, mid-30s, accurate off the tee, good putters. When it came down to it, actually, Jacques Kruijswijk, you know, he's sort of early 30s, not necessarily that accurate off the tee historically. But of course, you can have a week where, you know, you are heading it straight. And, you know, that's the problem with being too sort of data driven, I suppose, with analysis. But, you know, Ben Herbert was in a brilliant position at halfway, completely fell away in classic Ben Herbert style. Marcel Schneider, we both had in our fantasy team. He at one point looked like he was going to go close. In the end, he sort of fell away as well, didn't he? John Parry, obviously, you know, was there the whole time. So there's definitely something in that for future reference. It definitely suits that kind of, you know, mature, accurate off the tee player, and you know, hopefully he'll be back there next year because it's a really good tournament, I think.
Yeah, it's absolutely the right sort of player, and you know, Adrian Sedier would be another one who's there. You know, he finds fairways for fun, and Jaden Shaper, even, like, he's a very young man, but his style of play is very much steady, and you know, he's a John Parry type golfer. So we know what we're looking for there. And actually, Kruijswijk, you're right, he's a longer hitter, and not as accurate as the others, but he's probably one of those a bit like Ricardo Gonzalez is always the example Matt Cooper uses, so I'm going to say Ricardo Gonzalez. But there are some players who always actually found that they were better when the choice was made for them, almost when they're putting the driver in the bag a bit more, even though they can hit it 330. And he might be one of those. He'd been seventh there before, so we'll see what becomes of him. Gosh, I sound like I'm writing a period drama. But I do think he'll be on the DP World Tour for a few years, and one of those who could go on to have a really solid Justin Harding type career where he picks up another title along the way. Yeah,
definitely. And last thing to mention before we move on as well, that Joshua Berry, 19-year-old Englishman, got his first top 10. He obviously qualified. He earned his card via Q School 2 years in a row. Wasn't able to keep his card last year, but went straight back to Q School, earned it back again, and now he's got his first top 10, which will hopefully go a long way to keeping his card this year. But obviously, as we know, limited starts, but that does get him into this week's event, which is obviously very big for someone like him. So he's definitely someone to watch out for this year, I believe. On to the sort of in the news section of our podcast, and firstly, PGA Tour announced the Creator Classic. I think there's going to be 3 this year, but they announced the first of which is going to be in the Players Championship week on the Wednesday. I wanted to get your thoughts, Ben, on this as a general concept. Do you like this? Do you think it's good?
Well, I have to be careful what I say, because obviously after 2 years of continued growth for Sliced Podcast, surely 2027 we're going to be playing. I hate to sound like an old man, but I've just said that I really enjoyed the TGL, but I'm not really interested in watching people I've not really heard of and whose content I'm not interested in play golf. Watching people play golf can be a bit boring sometimes, and I'm sure these are people who have made careers out of entertaining people. I'm sure they make it not boring, and they clearly. I'm not being disrespectful. They've. I don't even know who's involved, but they've got their own personal brands. They've generated audiences. That this is part of the reward. So good luck to them. It's not really for me. I would say I think it's good that the PGA Tour are trying things like this. I think there's way more they could do. There are better ways to improve the product than have some tournament on the eve of the Players' Championship. But it's I'd rather it exists than it doesn't exist. But I'm still not going to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea is obviously try and bring new eyeballs to the game. Those sort of people who do just watch golf on YouTube. Watch your Grant Hovat, is that his name? People like that, which is fine.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, and they obviously, they're trying to find that audience, bring them over to the PGA Tour. Whether it'll have that effect, who knows? But
the problem is, though, if it does, they'll come and they'll see the products and they won't like it. That's the main problem. In my profession, it's something we talk about all the time. Like, you can do all this stuff to attract a new audience. What happens when you get them? What do they see? You go and attract them through some social media channel, and then they land on a website or in a YouTube channel that is different and it's not for them. That's the challenge. It's very easy with the right money and the right partnerships to get new eyeballs. It should be. What's not easy is to convince them that this is a sport they should invest significant amount of time in. So I hope they're thinking about that part of the equation as well.
Yeah, that's a fair point. The other thing to mention that happened last week was a meeting between Donald Trump, Jay Monahan, Yasir, and Tiger Woods to discuss a potential deal. And it's interesting reading Eamon Lynch's article in Golf Week over the weekend, where it was believed to say from sources that the meeting didn't go as well as tour executives had hoped. What does that say? What does that tell you, Ben?
I've no idea. I'm so bored. I'm so bored of it. Yeah, I don't know what to say, really. I mean, it's just another meeting. The statements they released, I don't know if you read it, but the statement afterwards, like, it's just laughable that we're still here, isn't it? And they on some level, they seem to think this is great and things are progressing. And it was a week before that where I was talking to you saying the fact Tiger Woods and other people in it, Adam Scott, Rory McIlroy, there seemed a level of confidence on the PGA Tour side that something is close. And now it seems like it probably isn't. So who knows? It's not very good, is it? It's not very good.
Yeah, I mean, Like, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. We talk about this basically every week, don't we? But it does sound like from that comment that maybe the suggestion is that Yasir is obviously pushing for Liv to remain a thing, and maybe the tour is pushing back against that, saying, well, if we want one tour, we want to sort of reunify. I hate that word, but if we want to reunify, it needs to be on one tour. Then that maybe Liv, then maybe there isn't a place for Liv. But it's
Bearing in mind, I mean, on the Monday, I think it was last week, I can't remember who said it. Someone from Golf Channel, I think, was saying there could be Liv players in the 2025 Players Championship, which is in, 6 weeks? Less?
Yeah,
No, way
that,
less.
Yeah,
In
less
3
than
weeks.
that.
In 3 weeks.
Yeah. Not long.
So we've gone from, John Rahm might be at the Players to square one again. And we've been back to square one so many times. It's like a game of snakes and ladders where every single square on the board is a ladder taking you back to square one.
A snake.
Well done. That was a test. You've passed.
Yeah. Right. The next thing to mention in the news, so Rory and Shane have confirmed to be defending the Zurich Classic later this year. Obviously, they won last year. And that actually leads on to the fact that I've had preview access to Full Swing on Netflix, which I managed to finish on Friday. And they feature heavily in episode 2 where they recap their win at the Zurich Classic. It's a good episode. And actually, it's something that I didn't actually realize. I mean, I knew that they were friends, but I didn't quite realize how good friends they are. There's a point in this episode where Rory mentions the fact that when they're at home, when he says home, he means Florida, they see each other 5 times a week, which I thought that's a lot. Even my very best friends, obviously my very best friends don't live near me, but if they did, I don't think I'd see them that much.
Too much in a way, isn't it? Too much. I mean, presumably this is practice rounds, quite a lot of it. So
it could be.
They're sort of friends and colleagues, I suppose. But
yeah.
How much footage was there of the karaoke from New Orleans?
Well, it was weird actually because they showed them singing, but they dubbed over with another song. I don't know whether it was something to do with rights to use "Don't Stop Believing," but you didn't actually hear them sing.
They dubbed over with a different song.
Well, they basically showed them on the stage singing, but the music that was playing over the top, the Netflix, were playing was a different song. So I don't know. I presume there must have been some sort of rights issue. Wow. The way I've explained it makes it sound like they're trying to mime a different. It doesn't look ridiculous, but it's just a bit odd. It's a bit like, oh, I was kind of looking forward to hearing them sing, but yeah.
Well, I was hoping I never again heard it, so it sounds like I'm not going to.
Well, anyway, I will mention I can't go into too much detail because I'm not sure I'm technically allowed, but I would say that the highlight, the one definitely to watch if you're going to watch Full Swing, which launches tomorrow, I would go for episode 6 first, which is one that focuses on Gary Woodland and Justin Rose. So obviously Gary Woodland, having gone through brain surgery last year, is a really quite emotional sort of story and really good, and you get a really real sense about he's just a good guy. So I would watch that, and obviously Justin Rose, you see a lot about him obviously in his open win attempt, open bid, and you learn a bit more about his sort of backstory, and it's a good episode. Two players again. I didn't realize that they were sort of friends as well because they're of similar sort of age, but there is an interesting point where Justin Rose talks about the fact that he played Gary Woodland at a game called Horse. Have you heard of Horse, Ben?
I've not, I'm afraid. No, sorry, I shook my head there and then remembered that.
Well, Horse. Yeah, I didn't know what Horse was either, but it's a game that you play in basketball apparently, where you basically you choose a shot that you want to take, and then the other player has to emulate that shot, and if they don't, then they get an H on their name, so you get all the way to Horse, and then you lose if you make the horse.
Gary Woodland's an outstanding basket. This sounds ridiculous that Justin Rose would take him on. I mean, what is he playing at?
I know, I was slightly surprised, but I mean, Justin is very, he's very humble about it. He says, we were in a different league, so he sort of acknowledges that. And he said at one point they played Horse. I don't know what inspired him to challenge Gary Woodland to a game of Horse. Maybe he started off with, an extra few letters or something. I don't know, but anyway,
yeah. Well, that sounds good. You know what sounds rubbish is Apple TV have a new show starting in June called Stick, which is about golf. Owen Wilson's in the lead role. Missed opportunity. Could have been Will Zalatoris. It also stars Colin Morikawa, Max Homer, Keegan Bradley, and Wyndham Clark. I don't know about you, but I'm worried about that. I'm especially having seen chirpy Wyndham throughout the TGL. He really was getting on my nerves by the end. But maybe that's the point.
My main takeaway from this is there are certain players who are, I feel, a little bit kind of overexposed at the moment. You know, Max Homer, who I really like, it feels like one to me. You know, he's appeared in things like Full Swing. He's in TGL. He's doing this now. He seems to be sort of everywhere. And obviously, at the moment, he really feels like he needs to be focusing on his golf game. Which, you know, and the same could possibly be said for Wyndham Clark. He's in a slightly different kettle of fish at the moment, but. Yeah,
Colin Morikawa as well.
I mean,
he should not be involved in the art that is acting. Surely, I mean, he's going to be awful. Colin, unless he's playing that role, unless he is Colin Morikawa and he's very serious and that is his role to be Colin Morikawa. I won't wear green. That should be his role.
Maybe it will be his role.
I'm worried he's going to be cracking wise and
yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, obviously, I believe, and the other thing I didn't mention when I was talking about them being overexposed, I believe at least two of these people also feature in Happy Gilmore too. I'm pretty sure that
for a while I thought it was the same thing. So yeah, there must be some crossover.
They're definitely different programs, films. But
Can I tell you a secret, Sam? Can I tell you a secret? I've never seen Happy Gilmore.
Oh, I'm slightly surprised by that, Ben. It feels like, is it one where it's got to a point where you haven't seen it and now you kind of refuse to because it's kind of like it's become like a thing?
No, it's just there's only so much time, and I don't know. It's not like I sort of have a sense of what it will be like, and I know I'm aware of Adam Sandler's work. You know, like I'm guessing I've got a good grip on what this film will be like. I'm sure it's very good. I'm just not really interested in watching it.
Right.
And I've never watched it, so there's my shocking golf admission.
I'm sure you said the same about TGL, to be honest.
That's true, actually, and look at me now.
You know.
Ordering merch. Oh, by the way, good news your background is way better than mine, obviously. My background, terrible. Last week, there was an iron on the shelf here, which I hadn't noticed because I only see a bit of it. And then we get the wide shot on YouTube, and the iron was there. I've got 3 lovely golf prints, one of Augusta, one of Royal Melbourne, one of the Old Course, and they're going in one nice frame together, and they're going on that wall.
Excellent.
I'll say it'll be there by the Masters. All right, I'm not going to because it's off with the framing man at the moment, and yeah.
Well, listen, this is a slight tangent, but as I mentioned, your team, the Bay of TGL, and obviously my team, LAGC, are looking, like it could be a bit of a rivalry, and one of them could well win the inaugural season. If the Bay win, I have got a little special gift for you lined up.
Well, that's lovely, isn't it? You won't be surprised, Len. I have nothing lined up for you. But that just reveals the confidence I have in my beloved Bay that I don't need to shop yet.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll see what happens. On to the world of golf. This week we've got a reasonably busy week. We'll mention the PGA Tour first, the Cognizant Classic, which I still always think of as the Honda. So if you think of the Honda Classic, PGA National, it's now called the Cognizant. Any thoughts on this one, Ben?
A cracking event. I love it. It's been sort of my most successful PGA Tour event, I suppose. I had Russell Henley 10 or 11 years ago. Nearly followed up the year after with Daniel Berger. I still remember when Daniel Berger held that putt on 18, people congratulated me.
Oh no.
Then Padraig Harrington holed from 20 feet and won the playoff, didn't he? Anyway, big price winners galore. I mean, Harrington was an even bigger price than Berger. Had Eric Cole won it, another playoff loser for me. He was 175 to 1. Keith Mitchell was a big price when he won it. Austin Eckroat was a big price last year. Sepp Straka was a big price when he won it as well. So it's a seriously volatile tournament, headed this week by either past champions or people who've very nearly won it. So Shane Lowry, who has done everything but win it. Russell Henley, who won it. Sung J M and Sepp Straka, who won it. Daniel Berger, who's done everything but win it. They're all very obvious, but it doesn't take a lot for things to go wrong in the Honda, as we both know it. So yeah, it'd be a great week, and obviously for us here in the UK, it's no bad thing that golf on Thursday on the PGA Tour is underway by lunchtime.
Absolutely. I look forward to the fact that the Sunday finishes aren't going to be as late as well, so I can kind of still go to bed at a reasonable hour on Sunday. The one that I was going to mention, so I think I've looked at it this morning. I'm not going to go as far as saying I can't see past him, but I really think that Daniel Berger won't get many better opportunities to win an event than he feels like he's primed at the moment. It's an event he loves. He's back on sort of home turf. I think he's going to be a big bet for me this week. But I think total driving is the one stat that I pick out as one that's really important here. And this is not to say, I think it's very important that you're accurate off the tee, but you do need a bit of distance as well. I don't think it would suit someone like Brian Campbell, because as accurate as he is, you also need distance. You need to be coming into the greens with shorter irons. You can't be hitting 7 woods into these greens because there's water everywhere, right? So I would look at that stat. And if you want to have a real big outsider, I would encourage you to look at Kevin Roy.
He's not as big a price as I was hoping for. He's definitely on my radar. Yeah, Florida-based flusher. He's definitely one to be interested in. I've got one who I really like, and it, when I put up Eric Cole here, he played the course loads on the minor league golf tour. I tipped Nico Echevarria and Max Grayson in this event last year at like 400 to 1 for the same reason. They both played well without doing anything, but obviously have since played a lot better than that. But there are a couple who have a bit of course experience, and one Corn Ferry Tour graduate in particular who I think will have this one earmarked. The other thing to say just briefly about it, Thompson, Henley and Mitchell, they'd all been in awful form on the West Coast. They're all from the East Coast or learned the game on the East Coast. So you see a lot of that. You'll see players who look like they've been struggling, but actually going around Torrey Pines, 7,700 yards, Poana greens, thick rough, and now they come to what's much more familiar. There'll be a lot of form turnarounds, I think.
Yeah, take the West Coast form with a pinch of salt. I still remember when you tipped Henley, obviously many years ago, and I think he'd come off a pretty bad swing, but he'd seen something in the final round of Riviera, I think it was, and he just, it was a different kettle of fish. It's completely different, isn't it? I mean, you might as well ignore that form on the West Coast, but yeah, well, it's a good event. I agree. It should be a good watch. Other events are going on. The LPGA is in Singapore for the HSBC Women's World Championship. The Asian Tour is the New Zealand Open, which is a really good event, actually. It's got some good players in the field. Any interest in that from a sort of punting perspective?
Not really. I think Lucas Herbert's favourite, isn't he? I'm sure I saw his name in the field, but you've got both Hillier brothers playing, Daniel and Charlie. I was a bit surprised Hillier opened up like 28 to 1, but I think I had the very same thought last year and did not win with that line of thinking. And obviously Sam Jones, he's really interesting, Sam Jones. It's hard to get a handle on because he sort of came out of nowhere, and had his DP World Tour season where he did show flashes. He's a lefty, right? He's one of your lot. Yeah,
one of my peeps.
And he's been playing really well on the Challenge Hotel Planner Tour so far, and now he goes back to New Zealand. So, watch out for him. But it's not, I'll be keeping an eye on it, but that's about it.
Yeah, it's a shame that Ryan Fox isn't in the field. I'm not sure whether it's because he's playing the Honda or not, but I know that he was initially committed and then he sort of withdrew reasonably in the last couple of weeks. So probably a scheduling thing, but obviously it's a bit of a loss for that event as the sort of the biggest Kiwi player. The other events that are going on, the Corn Ferry Tour, briefly mentioned it earlier, Adrian Dumont de Chassart, but the Argentina Open, which is at Jockey Club. You've got some comments on this, Ben, I believe, this tournament?
Yeah, very, very tough golf course. And I was just reading a bit about it. It's an Alistair Mackenzie design, and it even has a hole that mimics St Andrews, and it's got its own Valley of Sin. So I think winning scores... And I think winning scores here tend to be like, if you get to 10 under, you've either won or finished second. So, you mentioned ADDC being favourite. It might just be one of those weeks where you can dig out a more experienced, less flashy player than those that will be at the very top of the market. And it may even be one of those weeks where there are some veteran South Americans who just put a bit of nous to use. I don't know. There'll be a lot of players in this field who are in the Monday qualifier for the Cognizant as well. So might just be that it takes a while to get a firm grip on that.
Maybe a Julien Etulain.
Oh, there's a name you don't hear very often these days. Yeah, why not? Why not?
I don't even know if he's in the field, but anyway, just wanted to say that.
Surely. If I know Julian, he'll be there.
Surely. The other events that are going on, TGL there's a double header tonight. We've got LAGC against New York. Presumably a comfortable win for LA, but we'll see. Boston are playing Atlanta later on in the evening, and then tomorrow your team, Ben, the Bay, are in action against Jupiter Lynx. And again, you can
Ludwig versus Tiger. I mean, what a showdown!
I don't know if Tiger's necessarily in the field. I to be honest, I don't know, but he may not be in the field. That's ridiculous.
In the building. It's Tom Kim on Tiger's team. He is, isn't he?
Who? Sorry, Tom Kim.
Tom Kim. Yeah,
he's on Tiger's team.
So either way, you've got one of the games. You've got a global superstar, whether it's Tom Kim or Tiger Woods.
You have, but that will be balanced out by Kevin Kisner and a very out of form Max Homa.
Okay, you've made your point.
Right, next, we of course have to talk about the South African Open on DP World Tour, which is back at Durban Country Club, and this is interesting because so it hasn't hosted the South African Open since 2010. So this is a long time ago. It's been refurbished since. I believe all 18 greens have been replaced, 43 bunkers have been replaced, and it hasn't hosted anything. Well, it did actually host a tournament on the Challenge Tour, didn't it, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. Which JC Ritchie won. So that's the kind of the most recent, and that's post refurbishment. So that's really the one that we can kind of lean on a little bit. But what I wanted to mention is my mum has actually played this golf course, Ben.
Wow, how did she get on?
Well, I don't know.
Does she know who wins this week? More importantly, I'll be honest, Sam. I don't really care how she played. Who wins the tournament?
Well, yeah, I called her earlier, Ben, because I wanted to get her insights on it. As soon as I realised that it was being played at Durban, I was like, my mum's played there. I need to ask her for her thoughts on it. So I asked her, and these are her comments. It was very nice, but they're all very nice over there. So there you go.
Is that it?
That's it. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. I was going to see if she might write the preview for me this week, but she's going to need a bit more than that.
She couldn't really remember much about it, but she said it was very nice. So there you go.
You've played a lot of great golf courses when they all blend into one another. It is a great golf course, this, by the way. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. But the weather will be massive because, JC Ritchie, I think he shot 25 under, didn't he, or something like that.
He won by 6 shots, Ben. It was 20. I think it was 26 under. It was a 6-shot win. So, it's
fairly impressive.
It's interesting because when you go back to when it used to host the sort of big events, the scoring was much lower. But some of the names on the leaderboards of years gone by, in 2010 when it hosted the South African Open last, the top 4 were Ernie Els, Retief Goosen, Louis Oosthuizen and Charles Schwartzel. I mean, these are like the who's who of South African golf at the time. And it's, unfortunately, you look at the field this week and it's not obviously, it doesn't have that strength that it would have had back then. But it sort of shows you the type of player who, if you get those elite players in this type of course, that they probably will rise to the top.
Totally, yeah, totally. It's the other thing to mention about it is not particularly long, and it is by the sea. I don't think links would be a fair description, really. I think I've sort of seen it described as a parkland course by the sea. But without the wind, it's pretty easy. They've got a drivable par 4, and it is short. But with the wind, it becomes difficult. There's a lot of you've got to. I don't want to say hit fairways. I don't want to give the impression that I know Tim Clark won here once, but. I don't think it's necessarily like a plodder's golf course as such, but you don't have to hit a lot of drivers, and if you do stray wildly, you can find some lost balls and what have you. So I wouldn't necessarily, for instance, have it down as a Wilco Nienaber track, more a Jaden Shaper track, potentially. But yeah, we'll see how they go. We've got Dean Burmester, Charles Schwartzel and Brandon Grace from Live Golf. No Louis. He seems less inclined to play. I know he's played Leopard Creek a couple of times, but he's not. He's keeping to his late schedule.
Yeah,
those fields won't farm themselves, will they?
Indeed. Onto our player tracker, Elvis Smylie, unfortunately not in the field again. I guess he's just taking a bit of a break at the moment, which is fine. And Ayora is in on an invite and could potentially suit, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I would prefer to be on him on a course where he hits as many drivers as possible, but He played really nicely last week, really, for a golf course that I wouldn't have said suited. This probably suit a bit more. And there are, I think it's at the 18th hole that's a drivable par 4, and there are opportunities here to put that club to use. It's just probably 5-6 times around rather than 10 or 12. But yeah, that was a really impressive performance last week after a bit of a nightmare in Qatar. So I think we should expect that volatility. I certainly would see encouragement whether this week or next. He'll pop up on the leaderboard again.
Absolutely. Onto our fantasy picks for this week. And before we do so, I believe there's a little announcement to make. Reprizes.
Oh, I don't know if it's official yet. Oh, it's nearly official. So we are hoping. Yeah, why not? I mean, we're just waiting for some stuff to be finalised. But our friends at the DP World Tour, if I can say that, I've said it now, have very kindly suggested that we might be able to get season tickets, as they're called, for any one of their biggest DP World Tour events this year: the British Masters, Scottish Open, Irish Open, or BMW PGA. Tickets for 2 people for every day of tournament play, Thursday to Sunday. I mean, that's a great prize to win. Wentworth,
that's a brilliant prize.
Tickets to every day at Wentworth, or the Irish Open, whatever. Now, obviously, our season is well underway and won't be finished by the time these events come around. So we're looking at doing it in one of the, as you'll know, the DP World Tour schedule, the Race to Dubai, is split up into a number of swings. There is a swing that runs from mid-March to late April. I believe it's the Asian swing. Mm-hmm. I should know that, given that they've very kindly given us tickets to give away. I will confirm that. And basically, if you're in our fantasy league, you'll be eligible to play that, and they've got a way of telling us who's doing best just for that isolated group of however many tournaments it is, and that person will be getting 2 tickets to all 4 days of one of those events. So we'll firm up the details in the coming weeks, but it's a way better prize than playing golf with me and you, isn't it? Let's face it.
Well, absolutely. I mean, do we still offer that as well? I don't know, but
I think we've committed to that already, haven't we? And poor old Lewis Blaine, is he still out in front? Because if he makes every yard of the running yet doesn't win the Asian swing or whatever it is, he's going to be.
It'd be harsh, wouldn't it? Well, yeah. He is still in front, although Garvin Howarth has closed the gap. So
is that the YouTube guy you were mentioning earlier? No.
It's a similar name, but I'd be surprised if he listens to Slice. But hopefully he hasn't listened today, because he won't like your take on the Creator Classic. But
maybe he's already given us a 1-star review on 2 platforms, despite not listening to the podcast.
But it was worth noting anyway, before we go on to our picks, that the battle has tightened up between the two of us. You're down to 58th in our league, and I'm up to 65th after a reasonably solid week. So. Neither of us are covering ourselves in glory, but it feels like I'm on a better trajectory than yourself, Ben.
Well, it all changes this week, Sam, because I've gone big hitters, right? And I don't mean long off the tee. I mean serious golfers at this level.
Let's hear it.
All from South Africa. I mean, this is back to basics.
Okay.
Let's go back to what made me a successful DP World Tour fantasy player in the first place. Burmester, Grace, Schwartzel, Shaper, Jarvis, Ritchie.
Okay.
Beat that. Captain Burmester. I mean, there's basically no way I don't outscore you this week. So,
I think it's literally gone for all South Africans. I mean, I don't hate it, but
some might say rushed, but I would say decisive.
I'd say it reeks of unimagination, but anyway, I'll tell you mine anyway, and a little bit. I won't go into too much depth, but Brandon Stone is my captain. I know he hasn't had a brilliant record here, but he is a member. He knows the course inside out. And I always look at that and I think, look back to when Tim Clark won it twice. He was a member here, knew the course inside out, won twice. Brandon Stone is a different type of player to Tim Clark, don't get me wrong. But I just, I think that he will have circled this event on his calendar, and he will be really, he'll be trying to get the win. Laurie Cantor is a ball striker's paradise, loves playing golf in South Africa. Andy Sullivan loves playing golf in South Africa. Hasn't been in brilliant form this year, but you put him in South Africa and he plays a lot better than he does anywhere else. That's just fact. Okay. David Rivetto finished tied 7th in 2022 when it was played on the Hotel Planet Tour. He's in good form lately. Jaden Shaper, I'm joining you on that one. Just in very good form. Obviously, very talented young South African. And JC Ritchie, as we mentioned, won by 6 shots the last time it was played here. So, why not? Why not throw him in there? So, yeah.
Why not? Why not? I think you're ahead of me on the research stakes there. Clearly, I've pretty much filtered by ability and ticked some boxes. So, but yes, we'll see how we get on. South Africa all the way.
I hope that your research you'll go into more depth with your research before you do your betting preview.
Of course I will. Of course I will. Look, those three live golfers. I mean, they're Burmester, Grace, and Schwartzel. They're just classy golfers in this, and I think Burmester's been in the top 5 the last 4 South African Opens. So it won't suit him as much as Blair Atoll did, where he won it. But he's a really good player these days, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, no, he is, and maybe I'll rue the fact that I didn't make place for him, but we'll see. Right, highest bidder, Ben.
I'm ready.
We have some DMs. I would encourage people to send in other suggestions because we're running a little bit low. Again, I would encourage you to kind of think of ones that maybe I might do well at, but
members of Durban Country Club. How many can you name?
Yes. Well, actually, it's funny you say that. I could probably do. No, I don't know. I couldn't do that many. Right, we have one
bit of thing to write on. It says 8 from a previous week, but it's going to say a different number in a minute.
Okay. Right. Yeah, let's do paper rather than the hand thing because that was a bit too, right, we've got one from our good friend Niall Lyons, and this is the topic: 14 rounds of 59 or better have been shot on the PGA Tour. Can you name the 13 players who have achieved this, or how many can you name?
All right, fine. I've made a very quick decision. I think we have to decide quickly because, otherwise we get to actually answer it in our heads.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
I've gone with 4, Sam.
Okay, I've gone 6.
Yeah, you see, I immediately I was uneasy with this one. So 6
is. I mean, I'm not confident, but I need to try and win these things ultimately. Right.
So we have a little clock ticking here.
Okay.
I'll give you 3 minutes because I'm generous. So
all right, Stuart Appleby.
Greenbrier to win it. Yeah, I think I was on Jeff Overton that week. Never mind.
Jim Furyk.
Correct. 58, right? Does that count? Do you get one for it?
I think he said 59 or low, didn't he?
Oh, he did. Yeah, fine.
59 or better. Yeah.
Find a way for you to lose, and it's not going well.
See, I'm not what he's struggling with.
I'm talking to you, and I shouldn't.
No, this is probably. Yeah, I need to be able to focus on this. I mean, those two just came straight out, but PGA Tour, it's just PGA Tour. I was going to say like someone like Ollie Fisher, but of course that was on the DP World Tour, wasn't it? Let's just say, yeah. Did I want to say Justin Thomas, but I'm not sure he did.
Yeah, he did in Hawaii, didn't he? Won the Sony Open. He shot 59 in round 1.
Okay, good. Well, I was right to say Justin Thomas then. What other? Oh, David Duval.
Correct. So you want 4 now?
That's what you said, isn't it? I'm going to run out of time, aren't I?
No, you got another minute. This is great radio.
Yeah. Well, people like silences on radio, don't they?
Yeah. I've only got 1 written down that I'm certain. I've got 2 written down, but if I had to get 1 for a point, I've got 1 that I'm certain of.
Right. Yeah. No, I think I'm gonna have to throw in the towel. I went too high, but I felt like I had to. Go on, Ben.
Scotty Scheffler is 1.
Oh God, of course he did. Yes.
TPC Boston, right? I used to love TPC Boston. Now, I get a point for that, do I? Do I get a point for that? And if I name 1 more, I get 2 points, and then that's it, right? So, I have Paul Goydos in my head, so I'm going to say him. But
oh yeah, I think you might be right. I'll look it up, but I think you may well be right. That definitely rings a bell.
Did Tommy Gainey when he won the RSM, or was that 60?
I don't think that was 59. Yeah, Paul Goydos, absolutely right.
John Deere Classic. There you go.
Yeah. So you got your 2 points. Wow, it's 13. So there's another 7 there somewhere.
Well, I'm getting it up now. Here we go. So Al Geiberger, of course. Cameron Young. Do you remember Cameron Young did it at the Travellers, didn't he? And
he did it quite recently, didn't he?
Yeah. Did he do it last summer at the Travellers?
Yeah, maybe. It might have been. Yeah. That was quite recent, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Although that had the old yellow sticker, didn't it? The preferred lies.
Preferred lies, yellow sticker on it. Yeah. Adam Hadwin at the Career Builder. Brant Snedeker at the Wyndham. Kevin Chappell at the Greenbrier. Hayden Springer at the John Deere Classic. I have no memory of that. I must have been on holiday.
Yeah.
That was last year. So
Yeah.
and I think that just about covers them all. Fury, Appleby, Goidos, Duval, Chip Beck, and Al Geiberger were the other two. So yeah,
those are kind of ones that you feel like you should know because they keep coming up, don't they? Whenever someone does it, it always goes back to the sort of first time it happened, and you keep hearing those names. Like I couldn't tell you a single other thing that Chip Beck or Al Geiberger had done.
Nor me.
Well, I obviously couldn't tell you that either, which but,
very good.
Anyway, but a very good topic, Niall. Thank you for sending that over, and two more points for you, Ben, which means you're now on. I've got to sort of add this up quickly. You're now on 21 points, and I'm on 1.
I don't know what to say except that makes me really happy.
Yeah. Well, anyway, at some point we'll have to just make a decision as to whether we continue with this.
Oh, come on! I mean, it's basically what people tune in for. Yeah, what can I say? Please send in your topics. There's 2 things I want to ask of listeners. We're getting really good, solid numbers. We do need to spread the word. So if you could either tell a friend or better still, click the 5-star rating, not the 1-star rating, the 5-star rating, and maybe leave a little review. We've had some nice comments on Spotify and a couple of nice reviews on iTunes. I will get back to replying to the Spotify comments. We're very, very grateful for all of them, and mainly for anyone who's listened and is listening every week. It's great.
Yes, please continue to do so. Please leave your ratings and reviews, and we will see you next week.